All right, so on Tuesday, we started talking about the double exposure assignment. So the purpose of double exposure is to make it look like multiple pictures are taken on top of each other. So I started by opening up this picture and erasing the background out of it. Remember, we used the scissors tool for that to cut out the background from around it, and also gathered a whole bunch of different pictures so that we have a lot of variety that we can work with. So I'm going to start by opening up one of the pictures I got on Tuesday. Let's see, maybe this picture of a cornfield, I think it is. And I'm going to start trying to make this cornfield look like it's inside of the jacket of this person. So I need to get my cornfield picture, the size and place that I want it. And then if you look over on the layers panel, right now my person is showing up in front of the cornfield. I want the cornfield to be in front of the person. So I need to click on that layer and drag it up so that now I see the cornfield in the foreground and the person is in the background. If you want to see through the cornfield, you can go to the layer settings. It's that menu button on the left-hand side in your layers panel. And this transparency, the lower the number is, the more see-through your picture is. So I'm going to make it at least somewhat transparent so that now I can be looking at exactly what part of this picture is going to be in the jacket. I can rotate the picture if I need to. Remember to rotate. You're going to click on the dot in the top center. And when you move from left to right, it will rotate your picture. So I think I want part of the house and the barn to be in the jacket, and then kind of these corn rows. The next step, I'm going to take that same scissors tool that we used to cut out the person, and I'm going to start just roughly cutting out around the jacket. I'm still going to want to see some of the jacket and some of the picture. So I'm going to set my feather up pretty high. Remember, that fades the edges in. And then if I have remove from mask on, I can draw an area and it's going to erase that area of the picture. So I'm just drawing the areas that I want to take away for sure. Now I have just the part of my picture that was by the jacket. If I look down here, I kind of took an area away that I'd like to add back. So I just click back to this add to mask and it will show up green as I circle it and add that part back in. Now I'm going to set my transparency all the way back up. And I'm going to experiment with some of these blend modes. So if I click multiply, it's going to take both pictures and add them together. So this works well if you have something that you want to show up dark on something else. If you're trying to make something like a really light picture show up on a dark object, it usually doesn't work very well. But if your pictures are both somewhat dark, or you have a dark picture on top and a light picture below, usually the multiply works pretty well. I could try screen, and I'm just going to filter through and look at what each one of these different blend modes looks like. And you can see each one looks a little bit different, but they're starting to show the jacket underneath and my picture on top of the jacket. And again, depending on your two pictures, you may choose a different blend mode. So make sure you try a variety of them. I think this first multiply looked the best, or maybe overlay. Now that I can see the jacket and I can see the picture at the same time, I'm going to go back to my scissors tool. I'm going to get the paintbrush this time. Set my opacity down pretty low. So the higher this opacity is, the more of the picture you're erasing each time. So I'm going to set it down pretty low, probably around 10%. I'm going to make sure I have a soft brush. I'm going to set my steps down pretty low. And now I can go in and erase parts of this picture that I want to. So I think especially this line here that goes on the jacket, I'd like to see more of the jacket and less of the picture on top. So I'm going to start slowly erasing. Make sure you click the remove from mask and it shows up red. That means it's acting like an eraser. And I'm just going to slowly start erasing some of the parts of the picture that I do not want. If there's an area that you want completely gone, you can set your opacity back up to 100%, and you can erase all of that part of your picture. The goal for most of this, though, is going to be trying to get it to slowly fade from one into the other. So once I've erased some of the parts that I don't like, I'm going to actually flip back to add to mask, turn my opacity way down, and I'm going to start just slowly adding back in a little bit of the areas that maybe I erased too much in. Remember, you can go back and forth between adding to the mask and taking away from the mask. And the higher this opacity number is, the more you are showing or hiding each time. So I want to take away a little bit more of this part. And you're just slowly working to where the two pictures look like they go together. Just because I've added a picture to the jacket doesn't necessarily mean I'm completely done. I could still add things to the hair. I could still add things to the face. If let's say I think this picture is still a little bit too bright. I want to see a little bit more of the jacket through it. I can go back up to this layer settings, and I can still use the transparency so that I see even more of that jacket through the picture. Remember, this project, the goal is to make the pictures look like they were taken on top of each other and they go together. So you'll probably need to use the transparency and these different blend modes, but try not using just one or just the other, but experiment with using the blend mode and setting the transparency. And just to refresh on how to bring the picture in the layers panel, I use the plus button. Then I click that I want to import an image. I find the picture that I want to use. I click open, and then make sure that you're changing the size of this picture and placing it where you want within your overall picture. If you're having trouble once you have multiple layers stacked on each other, like let's say I go to click on this picture and it's selecting the wrong picture, remember to lock a layer in place where you can't select it accidentally. You can go to that same layer settings and you can switch that layer from unlocked to locked. And now that means even if I click and try to select that layer, it's not going to actually select the layer. It's just going to select the ones that are unlocked. And to check if it's locked or not, on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see that there's that little padlock that shows you that that layer is locked and you cannot currently select it. And again, to get to the transparency, you click those 3 dots on the layer and you can adjust the transparency of your picture. To rotate your picture, you're using that dot in the center. And then to cut out the background, you're using the scissors tool. And you can use any of the tools up along the top. So I could try using my magic mask tool to get some of the areas. I can use the draw mask tool. I can use my lasso tool. Any of those work. And remember this feather up at the top, that's how much of a faded area is going to be between where you're drawing and how clean that line is. So remember the feather, let me turn the transparency of this up so that you can see it easily. If I have a really low number on my feather, it's going to do a clean line with no fuzziness along the edge. If I turn the feather up, it's going to have that gradual transition that slowly goes from nothing to fades into your picture. When you're done, make sure that you're going up to File and then Save. Remember to click it over to a PXD format. Click Download, and then you need to transfer this download into your Google Drive. So make sure that you are going down to where it downloaded, saying to open in the folder, and then dragging that into whatever Google Drive folder you're saving into. You should be saving it to the folder that you shared with me at the beginning of first semester, but as long as it's on your Google Drive, you shouldn't lose access to it. So I'm clicking, dragging it into the folder on my Google Drive. Your Chromebook will look slightly different from my computer, but it is essentially the same thing. Just make sure that you're always saving it to your Google Drive and not leaving it in your downloads, because your Chromebook is going to delete your downloads somewhat randomly whenever it needs to clear up storage space, or if IT sets it up to delete them. So if you are saving to your Chromebook's downloads, don't expect it to be there in the future. Make sure you're always saving it to your Google Drive.